course, I couldn't understand them. All I knew is that from their emotions that they were very upset and they were looking at me. And I'm in a little baby bouncy chair, and I was looking at them thinking, calm down, calm down. And then I realized that they were looking at me and there was something wrong with me.
Imagine feeling like you've been given a second chance at life, lighter, clearer, more energized. It starts with your liver. Ultra Liver helps flush out the toxins holding you back. Tap the link below to try it today.
Hello, this beautiful audience. I'm very honored to speak to you today. My name is Robin Richardson, and I am a practicing mental health counselor in the state of Florida here in lovely, sunny Sarasota. And I'm also a reverend with the Cosmic Center of Spiritual Light. And I have been invited today to speak to you about my near-death experience when I was 6 months old. And it is very profound and it's very interesting. And I will take you through the various steps on how I remembered it and experienced it. So when I was little, there was a little red plastic laundry basket that my mother carried from place to place. And I did not like this laundry basket as a child. It made me feel very queasy on the inside, and she would always carry it from place to place when we moved. So there was a vicarious experience I would have with this, but no one ever told me why. So this experience happens in 1957. This was a pandemic throughout the entire nation, and you can do a lot of research on that, but I, of course, would have not had knowledge to this. So I'm prefacing that for you so that you understand what happened and how the laundry basket triggered the full memory of everything from a visceral experience. So I came home from school, and this is back in the day, so they actually had cloth diapers. And I came home and I was 8.5, and my mother said, would you please go downstairs in the basement and get the cloth diapers out of the dryer? So I ran down there and there wasn't any laundry baskets. So I was all excited thinking I could go outside and play and would have to wait for a little while. And she says, no, there's that red laundry basket and it's behind the water heater, because I had dragged it there because I didn't like it. And I went, oh, because I didn't like the feeling of that laundry basket. So I didn't know anything about it at the time. I just knew I didn't like it, and it made me feel very uncomfortable. So I trudged downstairs, went ahead and dragged this red laundry basket over to the dryer. When I bent over, I had to put the red laundry basket under the door that opened. And as soon as I did that, the full memory of what had transpired when I was in this red laundry basket packed in ice came to me, to the point that I almost fell over, because instantaneously the full memory came upon me, and I was able to remember that I was up in heaven, catapulting downward into this baby body of mine that had died, and I was packed in ice. And so that's what triggered the full memory. So it wasn't like I carried this memory. I had inklings of it. I had a vicarious experience with this red laundry basket, but it had to be that exact visual for me to have the full recollection of what had transpired in that red laundry basket. When I looked down, I could literally see and feel myself coming back into the red basket, and the full memory then is exposed to me. I was in the kitchen. It was 1950s, the metal tables, those chrome metal tables, and I was in a little baby basket, a little bouncy chair. I was sitting there and I didn't have good eyesight, so you'll have to recognize the fact that everything was a little blurry for me as a baby. But there were two people talking in a very staccato manner. Of course, I couldn't understand them. All I knew is that from their emotions that they were very upset and they were looking at me. And I'm in a little baby bouncy chair, and I was looking at them thinking, calm down, calm down. And then I realized that they were looking at me and there was something wrong with me. So in that one moment, and remember they were in a hallway next to this fuzzy brown box. Well, when you think about it, that fuzzy brown box back in the 1950s was a phone on the wall. I didn't know it was a phone, but that's what the fuzzy brown box was and why they were standing by that box. So I'm seeing that they're very upset, don't understand one word that they're saying, but I know they're upset. I look at my body, and it's a little baby body, and then I saw my hand, and there was light emanating from it. And I said, well, I'm fine. I feel absolutely wonderful. And in that instant, the best words I can use to describe this, it was like light beams came down full of champagne bubbles full of love. It was twinkling full of absolute love, and they were light. It was light giant beams, and they came down and scooped my entire body up, and I literally was lifted up out of the apartment. And as I'm being lifted up out of the apartment, I see my mother running in from the doorway down the corridor, just upset, frantic, and screaming. And at that point in time, I was disengaged. I'm coming up and I'm being lifted literally into the heavens. So as I'm being lifted, your consciousness gets totally expanded, at least for me. And it was like a genie getting out of the bottle. So your consciousness is freed and it's up higher, higher, higher into absolute space. It was freeing. It was expansive. And as I'm being lifted up and I'm into the stars, I felt free. And even in that moment, I felt free. It was beautiful. But I thought to myself, and now I'm able to think very clearly. And I say to myself, that's interesting. I was lifted. The space is beautiful. My mother's upset. I could still hear her. I could still feel her. She was upset. And I'm able at this moment in time to understand her language. She's frantic, saying, pack her in ice. Go get that red laundry basket. And I can hear her say this, and I understand every word and nuance of it. I'm hearing the other people. They're frantically trying to obey her. I'm understanding all of that. But at that moment in time, I felt so free. And then I start noticing I'm able to experience other thoughts and other energies around. And I said, wait a second, I can think 2 thoughts at once. That was interesting to me. So then I expand my consciousness so I could think 3 thoughts, 5 thoughts. I extend my consciousness so that literally you could think 1 billion thoughts at once, simultaneous. And at that moment in time, I'm able to see and feel all the energies. It was infinity. So everything that you could see and feel, I could also experience and feel inside of so that you can merge with it. Was able to feel that all the dimensions are interconnected. And the best word I can tell you is that it was the best image I've ever been able to see of this, is that all the dimensions, I could feel all the dimensions teeming with energy and life on every level. So not only does it go inward, dimension between dimension between dimension, but it goes outward, extends outward. There's consciousness in space that's teeming with energy and love and growth. So what I was able to then start to do and feel is that there was all these energies that were growing and becoming. There were whole universes growing and becoming, and that everything was being fueled by this beautiful energy, that my consciousness was expanded. I could feel every nuance of everything and go inside of it at will, simultaneous. But in addition, what I was able to do is extend my consciousness. The heavens were being fueled by energy, and you had infinity to grow and become. It was absolutely spectacularly amazing and beautiful. And in that moment, I turned around and said, everything is beautiful. You have infinity. Your soul goes on, and it's just a growth experience that all of a sudden I said, where is this coming from? My consciousness expands, and I felt like there was a creator's energy and love that fueled like a heartbeat of all creation, like a breath. So there was a creator's love and energy that breathed into all creation. We're not talking about one cosmos. We're not talking about one galaxy. We're talking about infinite galaxies, but it's not even just infinite galaxies, because you're thinking physical, you're thinking dimensional, something you can touch. Inside every dimension or frequency, there's hidden other dimensions underneath it. So that you have almost like an infrared, you have all these other different dimensions that are actually growing and becoming. It's not just concrete matter that you're touching. And I was able to see and feel and experience them, and I could realize I could merge with them at will. If you can think of a mainframe computer that could have infinite windows open, you could choose any one of those windows to concentrate your attention on, go in and feel and merge with it, and then you would know it intimately. But the creator's energy prime creator, source, whatever word we would like to use, the architect of all creation, was fueling all these dimensions, all of the cosmos, all of the galaxies, and the dimensions inside the galaxies and beyond for infinity. And you were able to feel and experience all of a sudden, everything was being fueled and growing. And then as it devolved, all of a sudden there would be another breath, energy of life, of growing, of love that would literally fuel it all again. And things would change and grow and go into other areas. So all of this was happening to me, and I was witnessing, and not just witnessing, but feeling every nuance of it. Because I could choose to go inside and feel every nuance of any dimension or of anything I saw while my consciousness was expanded. At the same time that I was witnessing the glories of all creation and feeling the levels of infinity, because it extends forever. And then the love extends forever. You can imagine I was still linked to earth, and I'm witnessing and hearing every word that is being said down on earth. And it was almost, the best I can tell you, it was like a gnat. Like, leave me alone. I'm witnessing all of the glories of creation. I don't want to hear this. But I was still linked. And what I find very interesting is this. When I'm in that state, I'm able to hear and know every word, every English word. But now, see, I'm a baby. I'm 6 months old. I couldn't understand any of this when I was on earth. It was just chatter to me. But in the heavens, my consciousness perceived every single word and the knowledge of such words, and I understood the full impact of them. So while I'm witnessing all of creation being fueled and growing in all the glories and all the dimensions, remember I said my mind could literally download and be with all the different tabs. So one of the tabs was what was happening on earth with my mother and the people there in my body. And what I was hearing was this. They were frantic. My mother was very, very, very upset. And they were trying to talk to her, talking into her. And she says, she's going to be okay. And she's frantic. And then I hear this very clearly up in heaven. Stormy, let her go. She's dead. She's not breathing. And then she said, what about the heartbeat? And she says, look. And you can feel just a moment, they're tapping, there's no heartbeat. And so you see the other two people, I can feel them. They're trying to calm her down. She's frantic, and I feel her inquisitiveness, looking for the breath, looking for the heartbeat. And then all of a sudden, I can literally feel my mother crash down on her knees in absolute acceptance that I had died. It was so devastating to her. I could feel her emotion. I could feel the distraught nature, the weeping, the horror, that the recognition that her baby had died. So my mother drops on her knees in absolute devastation. And then I feel this anger in her rise. And it was like a fierce anger and love fueled with emotion. And she screams my name. And she said, Robin. And it was like a fish hook. She said, you get back here now. And it was like a command. I can only tell you that I'm witnessing the glories of creation, experiencing love, a magnitude that there's no words for. But my mother's love was so fierce and so strong. It was like a fish hook came up and grabbed my consciousness and literally started bringing me back. And now this is where that tunnel of light comes. It was fast. It was furious. And I come down from the heavens like this. And then I see, which is what triggered the memory, in a bathroom, in a bathtub, this red basket packed in ice, this little white, pale baby laying in there that was lifeless. In all my arrogancy, with my consciousness being extended, I looked at that body. I said, there's no way that body's going to contain my consciousness. And all of a sudden, I went through, it was like I couldn't control it. I went in through the top of my head in this little baby body that was lifeless. And I was actually in shock because it came in there and it slammed into my body and it ricocheted for a couple of seconds. And I was aware still. I could still hear all words, could see everything. with that spiritual 360 understanding of sight and awareness, I was actually going, wow, my body actually contained this. And I was still in shock myself, realizing that I didn't go through the body. I actually stayed in the body. And at that moment in time, because I still had that 360 degrees of spiritual sight, I was able to see that the two people were behind me, sitting over there. It was a man and a woman. And this is what they were saying. This has never happened before. Are we supposed to call like the doctor, or do we call a morgue? Like, what are we supposed to do? And the other person was going, I don't know. I've never experienced this. I guess we should probably call the doctor. So they're talking amongst themselves while my mother's weeping right near the bathtub where this red laundry basket is inside the bathtub. And then all of a sudden, this is curious, and this is what I want to bring out. I'm a 6-month-old baby. I'm not supposed to be understanding English, right? Words or anything. I'm hearing their thoughts. I know their words. The one woman looks and she's quizzical. And then she's looking at this. I could feel her, and she thought she saw me move. And then she looks again, and then she nudges this guy next to her and says, look. And he looks, and he shakes his head. Now, I'm seeing all this. Even though I'm in my baby body, my eyes are closed. I can see, experience, understand the words, knew what their thought patterns were. And then she turns around to my mother and says, Stormy, I think she moved. And I can hear my mother's thought in words. Don't even get me going. I just accepted she died. Don't even start that stuff. And she says, no, Stormy, I promise you, I think she moved. My mother raised up because she's crouched and she's crying. She raises up and she looks at my body, and she sees that I must have twitched because, remember, I was packed in ice, so I'm probably shivering. This is what I felt, is elated. And she picks me up by my shoulders and pulls me out of this red laundry basket packed in ice. And this is what I find interesting. As soon as I opened my eyes, there was like a helmet of lead that was collapsed over my consciousness, so that in that moment, all of that 360 panoramic understanding of sight, of feeling, of understanding language, all of that went away. All those gifts went away. And that's when it closes on me. So that's everything that I remembered in that flash of understanding what had happened when I'm in the basement getting my brother's cloth diapers out of this laundry basket. You can see how I was like a topsy-turvy, because I'm standing on earth and all of a sudden I have this total encounter of me in heaven coming back in. So I was a little bit dizzy. So I grabbed the cloth diapers, put them in that red laundry basket, and I walked upstairs with this red laundry basket, and I said, Mama, did I die in this basket? She stopped. She looked at me. She said, yes. How did you know that? I said, did you call my name out of heaven? And then she literally almost collapses, sits in the chair, and starts sobbing. She says, how did you know and remember that? And I said, I heard you in heaven, Mom. You called me out of heaven. She starts crying. I said, what happened? And then that's when she tells me, and I said, what are those two people there? So this is the story she's going to relay to me. And then you're also going to see a very interesting tidbit, which I think validates this story. She said, I was a waitress. She was very young at the time. And she said, you had been not sick. You didn't have a fever, but there was a pandemic going around. And your own babysitter had gotten it. It was in the hospital. And so I had to go to work. There was a couple that was in the same apartment complex, and she had asked them to babysit me. And she said, you were, maybe a slightly lethargic, but you didn't have a temperature, so I thought it was okay for me to go to work. And she said that what had happened, she just got to work, started taking orders, and she got a telephone call from the house that my temperature had just skyrocketed to 106. So she frantically threw the tickets down and came racing back. And then that was her that I saw coming in through the corridor. And the two people, of course, was this husband and wife that she had asked to babysit me. And then that's why they were standing by that brown fuzzy thing I saw as a baby. I didn't know it was a telephone. That's the telephone that they were using to talk to her, which is why they were talking so staccato-y for me as a baby. So she said that what had happened, I was lifeless. They did check for my heart. There was no heartbeat. There was no breath anymore. And I said, did you call me from heaven? And she said, yes, I did. And that's when she's sobbing. And this is another interesting thing. I wasn't attached to those people. I said, who were those people? I hadn't known them before. But then I said, Mom, why did they call you Stormy? That's not your name. My mother's face is in shock. She's kind of hesitant. She doesn't want to tell me that. Well, that was a nickname they called me because I had never heard of this name before, you can imagine. And she said, because I was like a storm causing all kinds of chaos when I would walk it. And she said, I didn't want you to know that. Now, the very interesting, she had never told me that. I had never heard of it because you can imagine when she's got a baby and she's married and she's got another baby that she doesn't want anyone to know that was her nickname. Interesting that I was able to hear those people call her Stormy. I knew exactly what they looked like. She said, yes, that's who they were. And so very interesting. She was able to authenticate for me that I did die. No one had ever told me that. Also, now it makes sense as to why I was feeling this vicarious, uncomfortable feeling because it was such a traumatic experience in that red basket, right? And I said, why did you keep that red basket, Mom? And she said, because it was the one that brought you back to this earth. So that's why she had kept that red basket all those years, going place to place. I was able to bring back information that a baby couldn't have had, that I wasn't pre-programmed as to what I should have seen, because a 6-month-old baby cannot be indoctrinated. They can't even understand English. So what I was able to do is bring back even more knowledge. In the years that I've remembered this, I was trying to find words to gift people with what they could see and experience and know. That life on the other side is absolutely freeing and beautiful, and we are so totally connected in all of creation. You have eternity. Your soul goes on for eternity, and so does all the heavens and all the glories. What I was able to see and know and experience was even more than any of these religions on earth can speak about. And that your consciousness can expand on quantum levels. And so that you can become more conscious of things than you could have ever imagined. And you can do things simultaneous. That is pure consciousness expanding. And that we truly are like those sparks of consciousness that our source, prime creator, God is. And God was even more than all the religions any word could tell you. It's pure love, but you're able to connect on an intimate level with merging. So that if I could do this as a child and as a conscious being on the other side, and God was so much more that I was able to even just tap into him, her, for a moment, it was magnificent. So I would tell you that the consciousness expression that we have is way more than all the religions are telling us, that you have these abilities. It was very interesting that all those abilities stopped when it was like that helmet came over my consciousness when I opened my eyes. We have these gifts, and it just unlocks those gifts, I think, when we're on the other side, and it's the journey is bringing those gifts back. But to know and taste and experience the consciousness that God pervades everything with absolute love and glory, and that we can be part and parcel of that, and we are. So that's my story here. That gives you just a little bit of my journey. And part of them is, how did it impact me? You can imagine if my mother's crying and sobbing, she was overwhelmed with the experience. And then the few times that you try to express some of this to people back in the day, they didn't have a grasp of it. So I learned to hide it and just not express a lot of this information to others. But I can tell you it's been a very hard journey if you have had this experience and then you're able to go into school and you've had telepathic communication where it's instantaneous communication. You can feel and experience and go inside of things at will. And I laugh at it today, but I can just remember looking up and they're trying to teach me, you have to put everything into words, then you have to spell the words, then you have to have a subject and a predicate and a verb. And I said, I cannot believe all these rules to express one thought, where you can telepathically interject it into someone and know them at will. So it was very frustrating for me when you can see and experience these things and know we have these gifts and it's instantaneous, but have to come back to earth and to work within the restrictions of earth. But I will tell you there is much beauty down here, and our journey is to take this beautiful knowledge and enact it. So hopefully if there's any questions anyone has, this has been my journey. I would love to speak with each and every one of you. My information is in the description box below, and I really want to thank the Other Side Media for allowing me to tell you my lovely journey, and I hope that it has touched your hearts and allowed you to know that we are spiritual beings. For all eternity, we are connected, and there is such love, and the love permeates forever. Thank you so much.
If you've ever heard someone talk about a near-death experience, there's usually this moment where they say, "I felt so light, so free." Now, obviously, you don't have to almost die to feel that way, but for a lot of people, the first step is getting rid of what's weighing the body down. And one of the biggest culprits? A clogged liver. Your liver is like your body's ultimate filter, clearing out toxins, keeping your energy steady, and helping you feel alive in the truest sense. But years of processed foods, alcohol, stress, and pollution can leave it overworked and backed up. And when that happens, you can feel sluggish, foggy, and heavy. That's why Dr. Josh, with over 25 years of medical experience, created Ultra Liver, a deep, restorative cleanse for one of your most important organs. Think of it like hitting the reset button so your body can operate the way it's supposed to. Ultra Liver has sold over 500,000 bottles and earned thousands of 5-star reviews from people who say they feel lighter, more energized, and clearer. Almost like they've gotten a second lease on life. If you're ready to release what's been holding you back and feel truly alive again, now's the time. Dr. Josh is running a summer sale where you can get up to 50% off, but only through the link in the description. Visit tryultraliver.com/NDE to grab your bottles today and give your body the clean slate it deserves.
If you like this story, be sure to support The Other Side NDE by checking out our brand new book below,